What's happening, y'all? Welcome inside the Fantasy Stock Exchange. Danny and Bush coming at you with episode 3 of our Prospect Battles series. We have the top 2 quarterbacks, presumably on most people's board. We're going to go through which one's better, which one we like better for fantasy, which one's better probably for real NFL purposes as well. If you guys want a ton more rookie information, dynasty information, right now you're going to hear a video talking about our dynasty and rookie draft guide. And that is available for pre-order right now, and it will be available next Monday, a week from today or a week from yesterday on March 1st.
Just a reminder, guys, for a chance to be entered into a listener dynasty league with myself and Danny, you can pre-order our draft guide now at thefantasystockexchange.com. Read Jaylen, Waddle, Travis, Etienne totally for free. Enter your email to get $5 off the $30 purchase price. Watch the video on the homepage to explore all the great benefits that will be in the guide once it drops March 1st, and we're back to the video.
The first thing that we're going to get into when talking about these two prospects is analytics. Basically, what are they on paper? And this has been a battle. This Trevor Lawrence versus Justin Fields discussion has been a battle for multiple years now, going back to their high school days. In 2018, they both came out as the number 1 and number 2 prospect at the quarterback and across all positions, according to 24/7 Sports. Yeah. Both guys were 5-star recruits with very, very high prospect ratings.
Yeah. Again, these were the top 2 players in their class. Well, fun fact, though, they were the 2nd and 3rd highest rated prospects according to the 24/7 Sports grading cycle. Guess who was number 1 at the quarterback position ever?
Don't know.
Vince Young with a perfect 1.00 rating. Trevor Lawrence, 0.9999, and Justin Fields, 0.9998. So these guys are identical basically in terms of like what they were coming into college. Obviously, again, Trevor Lawrence is kind of, as you'll see, really stood out from everyone in these past few years. But man, coming into college, these guys were heavily recruited players and 2 of the best, quite frankly, recruits of all time.
Yeah, for sure. And in terms of analytics factors that matter for quarterbacks, we kind of talk about this across all positions. We're like, okay, so how much does this stat matter? How much does that stat matter? For quarterbacks, the most predictive basically that we've seen from a number of different people on Twitter that have done like studies about this are yards per attempt, quarterback rating, career pass attempts, so how much experience they have as a starter, level of competition obviously plays a factor, and then in terms of just their overall production, rushing production, passing production, you obviously want to be productive if you're going to be productive in the NFL, because if you're productive in college, chances are you're going to be productive in the NFL. So those are kind of the metrics that matter for quarterbacks due to similar efficiency on higher volume and competition. We're actually giving Trevor Lawrence the advantage in the analytics comparison, mainly due to the fact that he's been starting longer and we have a bigger sample size of his career. Justin Fields, of course, transferred from Georgia to Ohio State, had a bit of a welcoming year his first year last season, and then really in the 8 games that he played this year, broke onto the scene and played out of his mind.
100%. Yeah. Again, as you mentioned, the actual efficiency stats are super close, as you guys would have seen on the screen. I mean, their yards per attempt, their QBR, and their career pass attempts, or not their career pass attempts, but the QBR and yards per completion. However, as you mentioned, Trevor Lawrence started as a true freshman. Justin Fields didn't, meaning that Trevor Lawrence has done it on more overall volume. And again, we can make the case that he's played tougher competition over the last 3 years.
QB wins, not necessarily a stat, but Trevor Lawrence won a national championship as a freshman too.
Yeah.
So that's really impressive.
Which is crazy to me. Not to mention, I mean, both games in the college football playoffs was the best player on the field as a true freshman. So overall, let's get into the other 6 traits that we have mentioned here. And these traits are the ones we deem the most important in determining real fantasy production at the quarterback position. Again, we're going to go through each one as you guys have seen in previous episodes, say who we prefer in each, give you the overall rundown in terms of film context, as well as the numbers to back it up. So overall, first one we're going to get into is the accuracy. Start off with Trevor Lawrence. His completion percentage this year was at 67.9%, and his adjusted completion percentage was at 77.3%, whereas Justin Fields was at 69.9% and 80.3% adjusted completion percentage. So you start this one off. What did you notice with Justin Fields when watching him on film to give context to those numbers?
Yeah, real quick before we get into all the traits, I just wanted to say there's obviously more traits than the ones that we're going to talk about when evaluating quarterbacks. Quarterbacks is a very complicated position to evaluate. No one knows how to do it 100% correctly all the time. Even the biggest draft nicks in the industry still miss on quarterbacks. There's certain ones that we can quantify as fantasy players who don't have any actual connections to the NFL. We can't sit down with these players and get a sense of their mental toughness and stuff like that. So we're not even going to try and evaluate that just because we can't physically. We'll just defer to the people that have had conversations with them, that have met with the player and kind of get a sense of that. Because we really don't have any way to quantify that. But accuracy we can quantify, right? There's statistics we can do so. We can actually physically see it on film too. Justin Fields, as you mentioned, had very good accuracy ratings in terms of his statistics. They were both better than Trevor Lawrence's this past season. And both of the metrics, completion percentage and adjusted completion percentage, were both top 3 in this draft class, with, I believe, only Mac Jones ahead in both.
Zach Wilson as well, right?
Zach Wilson was ahead in one, but not the other. Basically, what you see from Justin Fields in terms of a film perspective is he's very much one of those rhythm passers. He can get rattled and lose his mechanics if he gets like jostled around early, and this is going to kind of be a trend for Justin Fields throughout this, especially more on challenging throws too, down the field or tight window throws. If he's been under pressure that game, his accuracy struggles a little bit. But when he is when he's in rhythm, and I would say the best way, if I was an NFL coach trying to plan an offense around him, the best way to get him in rhythm would probably be to run him early, like get him on running plays and get his confidence up and whatever, stuff like that. But if you get him in rhythm early, he might be the most accurate passer in this class.
Yeah, I mean, I could definitely see it. The highs and lows of Justin Fields are really interesting. And quite frankly, again, you guys are going to say that this hits close to heart, but kind of reminds me of what I saw from a younger version of Dak, where the highs were super high. He was leading the team down the field. He was scoring points. And then the lows, I mean, we all saw the 2017 Falcons game. You get him rattled early, and he really struggled in that game. But anyways, let's get off my quarterback because he's still not signed. Let's get that done soon. Let's get into Trevor Lawrence here. And while the accuracy numbers, as you mentioned, are very quantifiable at the collegiate level, I view accuracy when studying these college quarterbacks as more so a trait where really film tells me the full story here. We really measure a quarterback more so for his ball placement and overall ability to put the ball into tight windows rather than just the face value stats, if that makes sense. Because let's be honest, once you go into the NFL, the windows are going to be super tight. You have to be able to fit it into those smaller windows. That's why, heck, people that are trying to call Kyle Trask accurate when Kadarius Toney and Kyle Pitts are creating literally like 2-3 yards of separation every single play is pretty ridiculous to me. But anyways, it's about Trevor Lawrence. I think he's going to step in right away as a rookie and be one of the more accurate passers in the league because he's been used to throwing into tight windows throughout his career since he was a true freshman at Clemson. So overall, while I do think that Justin Fields' potential in this area could equate to what we've seen for Trevor Lawrence's consistency down in, down out is going to give him the advantage here for accuracy, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think when you talk about Trevor Lawrence, too, if you think about the types of receivers that Trevor Lawrence has had, he's had to make more ball placement throws, tight window throws, because as good as T. Higgins has been in the NFL, as good as Justin Ross is as a receiver, they're bigger-bodied guys that relied more on contested catch ability than they were natural separators who were getting, like, burning people downfield. So Trevor Lawrence, from the very beginning of his Clemson career, had to throw to receivers that were not necessarily natural separators as compared to someone like Mac Jones in this class, who has Devontae Smith and Jaylen Waddle to throw to, who are generally speaking always open when he throws them the ball. Yeah,
for sure. I mean, that's a huge advantage when you got guys like that. And even if you look at Ohio State, what they were dealing with, I mean, Garrett Wilson, one of the better sophomores in the country. And obviously we all know what Chris Olave is able to do from a separation standpoint. So overall, again, could give the advantage to Lawrence here, but I definitely see the immense potential that Fields has to possess in this area.
Yeah, and that's going to be another theme of Justin Fields, is that like the framework is there for an elite franchise quarterback, but it's not quite developed yet. Whereas Lawrence, obviously, due to his increased experience starting and the fact that he just is probably just more well-developed before he got to Clemson, is just better around, like all around in terms of those kind of areas. But arm talent, this is an area where both of these guys are tremendous in, right? This is
insane.
We've talked about this on numerous occasions. Not only are both of these guys tremendous in this, the other two quarterbacks that are going presumably in the top 10 picks in the NFL draft are also very tremendous in this area. So Justin Fields, the ball absolutely flies out of this guy's hands. He has probably the best velocity in this class. If I had to guess, him and Lawrence are going to be very close in this area.
Yeah.
But I think with little effort, you can see how hard Justin Fields throws the ball. And in terms of his scrambles and off-platform throws, he's got it all. That play that everyone probably remembers against Clemson in the semifinal where he throws that deep ball to Chris Olave. He has a guy like in his face when he's throwing that, and he's throwing off of his back foot like 55 yards downfield. So that is a throw that Kirk Cousins cannot make. That's the throw that Tom Brady can't even make that throw. Like that is a throw that only a handful of guys in the NFL can make. And obviously you want to see arm strength and velocity, but you also want to see touch throws, downfield ball placement with consistency. And that is an area where Justin Fields does fall short in this class. He's not to the standard of Zach Wilson, who I believe is the best in this class in terms of ball placement downfield. And he doesn't come close to the standard that Trevor Lawrence has, or even Trey Lance for that matter. I think he's actually fourth in this area in terms of downfield arm talent, consistent accuracy, and all that kind of stuff. So everything, the framework is there for Justin Fields, but it does definitely need to be coached up at the next level.
Yeah, 100%. Again, this is going to be a common theme when we do these quarterback comparisons. Howitzers with legs. We call them the Konami code right here. And let's be honest here, Trevor Lawrence fits that bill to a T. As you guys are going to see, the little banner going across the screen right now. I actually wrote up Trevor Lawrence for the draft guide. If you guys want more information on him, Bush wrote up Justin Fields. And let me tell you, we went into these guys, and these are guys you want on your fantasy teams for the foreseeable future. But anyways, let's talk about what Trevor Lawrence does from an arm talent perspective, because in my opinion, he is the most gifted in terms of these aspect in the entire class. I mean, the howitzer that Lawrence has attached to his right arm is just an absolute thing of beauty. I mean, the way the ball just zips out of his hands with enough velocity to really power a windmill is remarkable. I mean, in the pocket, off platform, on the move, it really doesn't matter what position Lawrence is in. The ball can just absolutely fly off his fingertips like it was basically shot out of a cannon on any given throw. And not to mention, as you said, the touch passes, the placement, everything is there in terms of what Lawrence is able to do from a talent perspective with that right arm. So it's going to be tough for anybody in this class to even get close in this aspect for in comparison to Lawrence. So he's going to take the edge here. As good as Fields is in this aspect, Lawrence is maybe one of the best prospects I've ever seen in terms of just pure arm talent, in my opinion.
Honestly, I would say if Justin Fields was in last year's draft class, he probably would have been the best arm talent in that class. And nothing against Justin Herbert. He has a great arm too. But that's just how crazy this quarterback class is that the fact that there's we're going to sound like a broken record talking about these guys, but all these guys have the physical tools to be super elite fantasy quarterbacks. So the next area that we're going to talk about, and this one's like a very broad area, but basically what we're talking about is efficiency. And what we mean by efficiency is the stuff that we can quantify within an efficient quarterback play. So it's a very broad term to describe quarterback play, obviously, but basically what we mean by this is a quarterback's ability to move the offense, score points, collect first downs, and take care of the football. All the metrics and stuff that go into that just kind of make up how good or how efficient of a quarterback they are. So Justin Fields in this kind of area averaged 9.3 yards per attempt, which was fifth in this class. And generally speaking, for a college quarterback, 8 to 8.5 is a good number. So 9.3 is a great number. And both of him and Lawrence actually have the same number in this area. Quarterback rating, again, another, you want to be over 100 usually if you're a college quarterback. And both of these guys are well over 100, 120.4 for Justin Fields, 114.7 for Trevor Lawrence. And then 22 to 6 touchdown to interception ratio in only 8 games for Justin Fields is a high touchdown number. Interceptions a little concerning. And then 21 sacks taken, which not ideal for Justin Fields, the third highest in the class, compared to Trevor Lawrence's 14 that he took this past season.
Yeah, no, for sure. As you mentioned, Lawrence is very consistent at balancing both aspects in terms of being able to make the big plays while also taking the care of the football when he was at Clemson. And in general, he was just such a pleasure to watch. I mean, his combination of just absolutely being able to stretch the field while keeping the ball out of harm's way is amazing. I mean, he displays incredible anticipation on his throws. He's being able to hit really any pocket of the field that he desires. You want the ball there? Guess what? Trevor Lawrence is putting it there on a dime, out of the reach for the defender. I mean, it's just amazing to watch. And quite frankly, the numbers back it up here. While the numbers are not everything, efficiency, Trevor Lawrence meets every single threshold you're looking for in terms of being able to translate to the next level.
Yeah, for sure. And I think with Justin Fields, we have a consistency issue. Most of the time he moves the offense well, he reads coverage as well, throws with anticipation well, makes good decisions, but he does have moments when he throws head scratchers. There was a play against Clemson in the semifinal where he throws to triple coverage. I believe it was Chris Olave that he was targeting on the play. And that is something that will require coaching and more experience playing quarterback, because that's an area that he's just not there yet. He needs to develop in this area. And this is very common for young quarterbacks. I'm not knocking Justin Fields for this. It's actually kind of surprising how well the other three guys, including Trevor Lawrence,
are very good
in this class, because most of the time you see young quarterbacks coming in, and this is their biggest struggling point. It was the biggest struggling point for Joe Burrow last year, I think, was that consistency of knowing when to take the chances. I think Justin Fields is more where Joe Burrow was in that area, as opposed to where Wilson, Lawrence, and Lance are.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, you want evidence of this? Trevor Lawrence, since starting as a true freshman, with all the volume that he has across his career, has a career 1.5% interception percentage, 9 yards per attempt. As a true freshman, since starting 38 starts, that's ridiculous. 1.5% or interception rate on his throws on over 9 yards per attempt, meaning that, as I mentioned, he could push the ball down the field, but he's keeping it out of defenders' reach. I mean, heck, if you guys don't know your math, that's 3 interceptions for every 200 passing attempts. Ridiculous.
Yeah, for sure. And again, generally speaking, another benchmark to keep in mind is like 2% is usually like a very good number for a college quarterback to be like under 2%. So
yeah,
and the fact that Lawrence, Wilson, and Lance are all under 2% is very impressive. Obviously, Fields is a bit above that, but this is an area that I think we can both agree that Trevor Lawrence definitely takes the cake, and he moved the offense more efficiently, and that resulted in a better record, obviously, for his team in a national championship. So you got to definitely give him credit from that perspective.
For sure. So if you guys are keeping track on home, that makes it 4-0 for Trevor Lawrence. But guess what? We're on to mobility. You kind of have a hint at who's going to take this away. But Corey, start us off. What you notice about these guys in terms of their mobility?
Yeah, and again, we're going to sound like broken records. All 4 of these guys can move in the top 4 of the
Konami code
class, whatever ranking you have them ordered or whatever. Justin Fields ran for 511 rushing yards, 5 touchdowns at 8.2 yards per carry this past year in only 8 games played. So if he had played, 12, 13 games like most college quarterbacks played, he probably would have had like 800 rushing yards and 10 rushing touchdowns. So that is great college production, just tremendous production. That's basically the type of production that you're getting out of guys like, Josh Allen in the NFL. Like if you picture that type of runner, that's kind of what Fields can bring to the table. Or a Cam Newton, for example. Cam Newton is actually the guy I compare to Justin Fields. And when you talk about actual athleticism, actual mobility, he reportedly ran a 4.51 coming out of high school at about 210, 215 pounds.
He's 230 now too.
He's about 230 now. And reportedly in his training, he runs in the 4.4s, which according to his camps, that's the numbers that you're hearing. Whether that's true or not, the fact that that's even somewhat believable, it just speaks to his mobility and his play style. I do think it is very Cam Newton-esque, and he has the frame, obviously at 6'3", 230, to be able to withstand hits as a dual threat quarterback. I think the difference between these two guys, and I actually think the difference between Trey Lance and Justin Fields versus Zach Wilson and Trevor Lawrence are 2 of those guys can run, but the other 2 guys should run, Trey Lance and Justin Fields.
Yeah.
One's mobile, or 2 of them are mobile, and the other 2 are dual threats. Like that's kind of the big distinction to make between those guys, where they all can run, but some of them, it's like a big part of their game.
Yeah, for sure. Again, you mentioned Justin Fields is an elite runner, which, I mean, you guys are watching. You could probably figure that he's going to get the advantage here because he's arguably the best in the class at moving. But I mean, Lawrence is no slouch in this area. He's a very slick mover for a guy his size. And quite frankly, for a 6'6", 225-pound quarterback, he's got absolute wheels. Like when we're talking about Fields' expected low 4.5s, high 4.4s type area, Lawrence at his size, I can see breaking that mid 4.6 type area, which is insane to think about. I mean, turn on the tape. You mentioned the Chris Olave play against Clemson. The year before, we got Trevor Lawrence's 65-yard rush against Ohio State. So these guys are just battling each other back and forth. It's fun to watch. But overall, I mean, the immense potential he has is not only the pocket player I've mentioned in previous points, but also the out of structure, on the run, and quite frankly, designed run type player potential that Trevor Lawrence brings to the table. I mean, it's ridiculous to even think about a guy with this overall package that Trevor Lawrence brings. So while Fields takes the cake here, Lawrence is definitely no Kyle Trask, Mac Jones in this regard.
Yeah, for sure. And I think this is an area that obviously directly correlates to fantasy points.
Yeah.
We've seen from guys like Lamar Jackson, like Cam Newton, as I mentioned, these guys almost single-handedly carry their fantasy production due to their ability to run the ball. And while I don't think Justin Fields is quite that level where he's going to be just like a rushing dynamo for fantasy, I do think he is going to get probably 60, 70% of his value perceived by most fantasy players as a running quarterback, because he does need development as a passer. He's not the most refined in terms of decision making as a passer and all the stuff that we already mentioned. So this is an area that he can definitely make up for that and make his transition to the NFL a little easier because of his ability to run and get out of trouble.
100%. So again, tie it home. Fields takes his first point. Let's go into deep passing. Does Lawrence take that 5-1 edge, or does Fields close in the gap and make it 4-2? Take it away.
Yeah, so Justin Fields, 14.2% of his total passes. So of his total pass attempts this past year, 14.2% were pushed 20 yards plus downfield. So in terms of the class, it was about middle of the pack to lower end in terms of actually pushing the ball downfield, which to me was a little surprising. I thought Fields probably pushed the ball more than the stats would indicate. His adjusted deep completion percentage was 59.4, which again was a little bit more middle of the pack, a bit of the higher end of the class. And then 117.7 passer rating on deep throws, which was towards the higher end of the class. So he's definitely an adequate deep passer. Both guys kind of, just to speak on them, both of them kind of struggle with some consistency in this area. I think Zach Wilson is the best deep passer in this class. I think the battle for 2 and 3 is probably between these two dudes. And Lawrence actually falls short statistically in both seasons versus Justin Fields in terms of adjusted deep completion percentage and adjusted passer rating on deep throws. But these two guys have sometimes their deep balls get away from them at times, and that will require some mechanical work at the next level.
For sure. Again, like Fields is going to take the edge here, but they both display some inconsistencies in this regard. Again, you mentioned the stats do favor Fields as well. So, you know what? While they both struggle in this area at times, Fields is going to take the cake on this one because of those advantages statistically. Sorry, I can't talk today. My bad.
A lot of people can't talk today. But yeah, so like 51% to 59% is a pretty big difference in terms of adjusted completion percentage. 113 passer rating to 117, not too big of a difference there. But I think the completion percentage and the rate that they throw is about the same. So you got a pretty decent sample of those two guys throwing deep balls in their college careers. I think Justin Fields does beat him a little bit, but with Justin Fields, sometimes he's just so inconsistent in specific games that you look at that it may seem like Trevor Lawrence is probably a better deep passer from a consistency level. So we give the advantage to Fields here because the statistics do favor him quite a bit, but it is very close. And I think both of these guys are definitely more than adequate to do this well at the next level. And obviously deep passes equate to fantasy points, especially for Trevor Lawrence's case. When you have a receiver like DJ Chark on your team, you better know how to throw a deep ball.
100%. So we'll go into the seventh and final trait we're going to measure here or quantify here, and that's going to be the under pressure aspect of each of these guys' games. So to start off, I mean, Trevor Lawrence, 54.5% adjusted completion percentage when under pressure, including an 84.8 passer rating when under pressure and a 7-2 touchdown to interception ratio, when compared to Justin Fields and his 62.2% adjusted completion percentage under pressure, 54.1 pass rating under pressure, and 3-3 touchdown to interception ratio. Statistics alone, you guys can see Trevor Lawrence absolutely dominates in this factor. I mean, a passer rating under pressure over 30 points higher than what Fields has, and the touchdown interception ratio alone, it's Lawrence. But what did you notice when you did your evaluation of Fields for the draft guide?
I think when you look at Justin Fields, most of the people will point to the Alabama and Northwestern game. So Alabama against Alabama in the national championship game was a game that Fields definitely struggled in. And then the Northwestern game that he had, I can't remember how many turnovers he had in that game, but he had a couple turnovers in that game. I think the big takeaways from watching those games from part of Fields' evaluation is that they definitely rattled him early. They got to him early, and he slipped into that mode where his confidence was a bit shaken and his mechanics suffered as a result of that. Once again, in rhythm, when he's playing well, he can handle pressure with ease. He can, again, I'll point back to that Chris Olave play. He stepped up in the pocket because he was playing out of his mind in that Clemson game. And this was actually after he suffered that rib injury too in that game. And he steps up and delivers a dime downfield with a guy like right in his face. But if you rattle him early and he can't get his confidence up, then it's tougher for him to bounce back from. So again, another area that he's going to have to work on, another area that's going to require a good amount of NFL caliber coaching to correct. And so you can get into Trevor Lawrence and why he definitely takes this area.
For sure. And again, you mentioned all those issues with Fields. Meanwhile, Lawrence is just so cool and calm while under pressure. I mean, he's able to coordinate and manipulate the pocket with ease, and he just gets the ball out of his hands when he needs to. We've seen him stay poised throughout games, despite the farm really being sent on him at such a young age. Keep in mind, this guy's been doing it since he was an 18-year-old true freshman. No more pressure than what he faced as a true freshman in that national championship game against Alabama. Guess what? This guy stood in, took the heat, took all that pressure from a Saban defense, and has delivered, quite frankly, these past 3 years since that game. So overall, I mean, what we've seen from Lawrence in terms of just being able to stay composed, stay poised, deliver the passes, avoid the pressure, he's very good in this aspect and easily takes it over Justin Fields, as you mentioned, with his certain issues that he got, referenced these Alabama, Northwestern, and quite frankly, I think it was Indiana as well that he struggled against. There was one other team. Yeah. So, I mean, Lawrence does take it here because of Fields' inconsistencies in this regard.
Yeah, and I think the impressive thing, too, about Trevor Lawrence is the fact that he might play for a powerhouse school, obviously, but they don't have that great of offensive lines, ever. They've had, John Simpson.
Mitch Hyatt, bro.
Mitch Hyatt,
he's undrafted.
They don't really have that good of offensive lines. So Lawrence probably faces pressure at a higher rate than most people assume just because he goes to Clemson. But when he plays teams like Alabama and even Florida and Georgia, teams that have great fronts, it's tough for him because his offensive line really isn't that good. And you can see that a lot when you watch Travis Etienne play as well. So I think what he's been able to do, despite having a bit of a spongy offensive line, considering the rest of the talent around the team, is pretty impressive. And as you mentioned, cool and calm under pressure is the only way to describe it. I think the best I've ever seen in this area in terms of watching a prospect was Joe Burrow last year, but Trevor Lawrence is still very good in this area in his own right.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, people want to hype up Jackson Carman, his left tackle, when he was literally an absolute pylon when I watched the tape last year. I mean, it's pretty crazy to see how much pressure was coming off that side, and Trevor Lawrence just evades it, gets the ball out of his hands with ease, no pressure, all calm. Absolutely great in this area. So, advantage Lawrence. If you guys are doing the tally at home, 7 traits are done. Guess what? It's pretty predictable. We all knew that Trevor Lawrence was going to win, but by how much? We got the 5-2 final tally for Trevor Lawrence, which is pretty indicative of just how good this guy is overall as a combination in terms of his prospect potential.
Where do you have Fields ranked among the quarterback class?
I currently have him 2, but I'm going to go more deep into Trey Lance and Zach Wilson. I got to watch more of Zach Wilson from 2020 and obviously a couple more games from Trey Lance in 2019. Currently on about 2 or 3 of each of them. But overall, that second tier, 2 to 4, is literally splitting hairs. And I've said it multiple times. Whoever gets the better landing spots amongst those guys is going to be my second-ranked quarterback in fantasy. So, whereas for you, Zach Wilson can jump Trevor Lawrence. A little sneak peek into what we got coming at you in terms of the Trey Lance versus Zach Wilson comparison when that comes. Yeah, it's fun. This quarterback class is fantastic. We've mentioned it multiple times. All Konami code guys, all guys that, quite frankly, in the right landing spots, I can envision as top 10 type dynasty quarterbacks. Insane class. Make sure you get those rookie picks and make sure you get these guys on your squads.
Yeah. If you play in any kind of super flex league, you definitely want to prioritize those top 7 or 8 picks because you're probably going to get a good shot at these quarterbacks for fantasy perspectives. Even if one of these guys lands on the Jets, I still think they're in prime position to be a good fantasy quarterback. So with that being said, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed this. Comment, subscribe, all that stuff. If you made it to this point in the video, comment down below CeeDee Lamb because it's Danny's favorite player of all time.
Number 7 on the big board.
To our draft guide, make sure you guys check that out. It will be out about a week from today. So there's still room in the Listener Dynasty League to potentially get into that. So make sure you guys go ahead and pre-order it if you haven't already done so. So peace out, guys. Enjoy your Tuesday.
Peace out.